So
Wow,
maybe the
this,
first. What do you want to do? The first one? Do you want to do like an Eddie Van Halen talk or like a review of some of his songs, his tunes, or
you know
Van
what?
Halen, or
Let's just talk about how much we appreciate Eddie Van Halen because that's where it all starts. I mean,
yeah.
that for me, I mean, that's I wouldn't be talking to you if it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't for honestly Eddie Van Halen. I mean, that's the truth because I mean, my dad, he's the first guy that showed me how to play guitar, right?
Right.
But it wasn't until I heard Van Halen that I was like, okay, that does not sound like guitar to me. That was something out of this world. So, I mean, our first episode should be about Eddie Van Halen, I think.
Yeah, that's true because he's my mentor also. I think for anybody that's grew up in the 70s and the 80s,
Right.
I think everybody were like really big into Van Halen. And the first time I saw him was when I was living up in Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon, and I think it was maybe like around 11 or 12. And I remember seeing his video, but I don't remember the name of the song. But then
What
it's
year
like
is that?
78, 79. I think maybe 78.
Oh, you got into Van Halen before I did, way before I did.
Yeah, maybe I'm a little bit older than you.
No.
But now
Well,
looking
I
back,
look older.
you gotta wear a hat.
Oh gosh. I know, huh? Wear a hat and dye my beard.
Dye
Oh,
your
well, that's
beard.
okay.
That's it. But anyway, I saw I didn't know at the time, but the tune I believe it was Dance Night Away. It was like a live version
Oh, okay.
when it first came out, and I saw the tapping and go, hey, that's pretty cool. I had no idea anything about guitar because I didn't really start playing. My dad bought me an acoustic classical nylon guitar with a crack on the side of it from
Okay.
the swap meet, in Eugene, Oregon.
How old were you?
Probably like around 11 or 12 or
Okay.
like that. And then, he showed me a few chords. But before that, when I was living in El Monte, before we moved up to Oregon, the first record that I bought was I think it was Thank God It's Friday. And
Disco?
yeah, disco was and it was like I think it was like 10 years old, whatever, right? And I
Right.
freaked
Disco was
out.
big. Sure.
Yeah, and then one day I was in a playground in my junior high school, Jefferson, no, Frank M. Wright in El Monte. And somebody, there's a park right next door, and somebody was playing Kiss Detroit Rock City.
Oh, okay.
And you know that solo part in the middle of the song?
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, what is this? It's
Yeah.
like, I didn't hear that in the disco music. I grew up, with my dad listening to classical music and also Herb Albert and King
Okay.
of Brass. So I had this, I was always been, bombarded with all these, classical music and major and minor scale kind of
Yeah, yeah.
in my brain already. So it's like from just hearing that Detroit Rock City the very first time totally changed my perception on music, and I stopped listening to disco, and I got into rock when I was about 10 or 11. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, you started way earlier than I did because I didn't start playing guitar till I was like 13.
Oh yeah, 13.
But the house is always filled with music. I mean, my
Yeah.
parents listened to, like the disco, but they also listened to soul, R&B,
Right.
some the Rolling Stones, Beatles, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and my dad was a musician and he was in bands when he was younger. And even later in life, he was well, like in his 30s, he was in a band that played like Doobie Brothers and
Also,
whatever.
your dad was a musician.
Yeah, he was a
Right.
musician. So he wanted me to learn guitar and so he bought me like the acoustic nylon string, right?
Yeah.
And he showed me what he knew, but he couldn't tell me what he was doing because he
Right.
played by ear.
Right.
And so it was cool. And I did it to, make my dad happy, because he was taking the time to show me. So I was learning it, but it was kind of like, okay, I'm going through the motions and I'm not really feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I think I was in junior high and a friend, I was at his house and we are jamming because he played guitar. that he started playing me all these records, right? Like
Mm,
Black Sabbath and Ozzy, Iron Maiden. All
right.
of a sudden he played Van Halen. And I
Okay.
was like, wait, what's this? You
Was that
know,
the first album?
it was the first album. Yeah, I wasn't, because I listened to nothing but pop music growing up.
Right.
I was like a kid. It was, not until like when I was younger, that's all I heard. A
Mm,
lot of AM radio. I had my little transistor radio. But yeah, Eddie Van Halen was the one that got me into wanting to go back to the house and pick up the guitar and really
yeah.
get into it. And
Yeah.
after that, it was just like I took off and I was like, wow, I really want to learn as
Yeah.
much as I can.
Right.
I think a
Well,
lot
for
of people have
me,
similar stories like that.
yeah, mine was kind of similar. I mean, um, and then we moved back down to LA, and then that's when I started playing guitar more, and I took some classes or some lessons from this guy. His name was Buddy Worth, and he had a music hut. And I remember I really was getting into rock and hard rock and Van Halen and stuff like that, and Sabbath and Ozzy and things like that. And then and I was taking like a couple of lessons, maybe two or three.
Yeah,
And then, well, we didn't have a lot of money, so my dad says, hey, it's either because I wanted to buy an electric guitar and an amp,
yeah,
and couldn't afford both. So the lessons or the guitar. So I decided just go for the guitars. I mean the
sure,
guitar amp. And I stopped taking lessons, and from then on I just kind of basically learned on my own.
right.
And
Well, you know what's cool about the guitar is that you
mhm.
can teach yourself. Most players are self-taught on the guitar.
Yeah, that's
That's the
true.
cool thing about this instrument is you can really just sit down, listen to recordings, whatever you have available, and just start picking up the
Yeah,
notes,
and that's
picking out
that's what I did.
notes.
I think most of us just like put on the
Yeah.
record and imitate what we hear.
Hmm.
And I think doing that probably help you develop your own sound more than
And your
like
ear too.
like yeah, in your ear, and more
Hmm.
than just like learning it note for note or from a book or from
Right.
watching instructional videos or something like that. Because there's a lot of like I hear like a lot of these new guys, man, they sound so good. Very technical, but I cannot tell them apart who's who. You
Right.
know, like if
Hmm.
I listen to Van Halen or whatever, one note I know is Eddie.
Right.
You know,
If I listen to Ingve, I can hear right
yeah,
away.
one note is right away is him.
Steve
Like the
Vai, the
guy,
same way.
what's his name? Guthrie Govan.
Hmm.
He did like did this like compilation of all these
Right.
great guitars.
All their
It's like a
styles. Yeah.
10-minute long song or tune or 20
Right.
minutes, whatever. Um, the problem is, I mean, he's a great player, no doubt. I
Mm.
mean, he can play anything, right? He's tremendous. He got skills, he got ears, everything.
Right.
But if you were just to play an isolated track from him, I would not be able to tell who he is.
Right. Yeah.
I would have no idea, you know. And a lot of these other new guys, like have you heard of this Mancuso, this kid
Yeah.
Mateo?
Well, yeah, yeah. He plays with his
Yeah.
fingers.
Oh my, yeah. It's
Yeah, yeah.
man. I mean, you
He's
can't touch that,
he's good.
But the sound is not distinct because I wouldn't be able to tell. If I didn't see the video of him doing it. I
Right.
mean, would you be able to tell that that's him compared to some other guy?
Probably not. I mean, it's like a lot. It's hard to get that individuality. I don't have it, but I can listen to players and I can tell right away who that is just by
Yeah, like
there's something about their tone or about their note selection. Like I
and the way
can,
they bend the strings, things like that.
yeah, or like I can tell Frank and Bali right away, sweep picking.
Yeah.
I can tell by his tone and his feel. I can also tell like even George Lynch, his
Yeah.
vibrato, he does this crazy vibrato right away.
Randy,
Like, yeah, like
and
remember
all the
that
guys that we grew up with. Yeah.
remember that thing with Dio that was called Hear and Aid. Remember
Oh,
they had
here, yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I can still to this day I'll go back and listen to it, and I can not even look at the video, but I can hear who's playing just because they had. I can tell Ingve, I can tell George Lynch. I
Yes.
couldn't tell like Carlos Cavazo or Vivian Campbell. Maybe a little bit on Vivian Campbell, but not too much. But those two
Yeah.
players are the ones that really stick out the most. And
That stood out
yeah,
exactly.
Ingve and George Lynch because they have that. Well, Ingve has that classical influence.
Yeah.
His scales he uses. George
And
Lynch
his
has that
tone
crazy
on the
vibrato, huh?
and his tone, back then, I
Tone,
mean, he was
right?
like, man, he was like, top of the world, basically. Everybody wanted to play that neoclassical. But listen to
Yeah,
his tone, it was just tremendous.
I could tell Paul Gilbert,
Oh yeah, yeah.
even though he's a fast shredder, I can close my eyes and say, oh, that's Paul Gilbert, just by
Well,
his
when
three
you
note
hear
per string
somebody
stuff.
so precise like that,
Hmm.
and technical, it's like, right away it was Paul Gilbert. The guy is
Right.
just he's a monster on the fretboard. It's
Yeah,
just
but you're right. There's a lot of players that are not. They kind of just blend in together.
they just kind of, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
Sean Lane, I could tell Sean Lane,
yeah, Sean Lane. Yep.
Eric Johnson. I
Or
think
our Buckethead too.
Buckethead. I haven't listened to him that much.
Okay.
So sometimes I'm thinking that maybe Paul Gilbert is Buckethead.
Well, that was the rumor going around for the longest time. It was
Because they're the
distinct.
same height and
Well,
like they got the
they're
long arms
tall,
and
they're
fingers. Yeah.
thin, and they got the long fingers. No,
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
what
a
I always thought. It was the same
yeah.
guy.
For the longest time, it was like I think Paul Gilbert is. People would say I think he's Buckethead. Because he's kind of quirky. He's kind of weird like that.
Yeah,
I can imagine him putting on this disguise
right.
because he wants to have an alter ego. But no, that's Buckethead is Brian Carroll. It's a total different guy.
Have you
Um,
seen what he looks like?
yeah, yeah.
Actual.
He just looks like a regular guy with long hair.
He doesn't look like anything like Paul Gilbert.
He's tall like Paul Gilbert. He's tall like
Okay.
him, but he doesn't really have his features. No, but
No.
but I remember Paul Gilbert talking about Buckethead at GIT.
Wasn't Buckethead was his student or something like that? I think it was his
You
student.
know what? I don't
I
know the
remember
history. I
some
think he took.
video.
I think they jammed or he took a lesson. I could be wrong, but
Yeah,
there is a connection there of some type.
yeah. I remember him saying that Buckethead was his student.
Oh, okay. Then probably right because I know
Yeah,
that
right.
they have similar styles in terms of the three note per string and the fast
Yeah,
alternate picking.
yeah,
I could see that for sure.
yeah. But
But
anyway, let's go back to Eddie. I mean, we kind of got sidetracked here.
well, all things lead back to Eddie, anyways.
Yeah,
Without
that is
Eddie,
very true.
you wouldn't have these other players because
I the more I think about it, I think like all the music, all the guitar greats that came after Eddie, they're a derivative of Eddie.
they are. I mean,
And just like the tone, the technique, the technical capabilities, the tricks,
the
it's
vibrato
all
bar,
derivative. Yeah, I mean that Van Halen one. I mean, how many things that were done and accomplished in that Van Halen one? The tapping,
right?
the whammy bar, the false harmonics. I mean, we could go on and on and on. It was like dive bomb. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
like I mean, other people may have done those kind of things, but they didn't put it all together to get that sound and the attitude. It's kind of like an in your face attitude. It's just like
Right.
did you know that like Eddie won I think the best new artist or the guitars of the year for Guitar Player magazine. I think it was 78.
Uh-huh.
Guess who was the one for 1977?
Let me guess, probably like Pat Metheny or something like that.
No, no, this is for rock guitars.
Rock guitars. I don't know, maybe Peter Frampton or something. I don't know.
Close. It was Mark Knopfler from Dire
Oh, you
Straits.
see, yeah, I figured it would be somebody kind of like, subdued, good player, but not like the energy that Eddie Van Halen brought. You know,
Right.
back then, Mark
Exactly.
Knopfler was probably, yeah, this guy's
No, he's
on the
really good.
edge. He's really
Yeah.
good, but but you
He's
have
a
to
totally
admit
different
it's more
style.
subdued. It's more, laid
Yeah.
back.
The
It's not
clean sound.
aggressive. Yeah.
Not so yeah.
I
It's
mean,
just
I can see that, but then when Eddie came, it changed, and everybody was like, "That's yeah,
yeah.
he's
Everybody
guitars
wanted to be Eddie.
right."
He's the king of the hill. The what did Dave say? He was like the king of the six strings and 10 fingers.
Right.
10
Well,
fingers,
I
right?
remember back in the day, they would have like on KLOS or KMET, they
Mhm.
had these. They would have audio like retrospectives, right? And they were talking about Van Halen. I think Jim Ladd was the host, and
Okay.
there's always something that stuck out in my mind. What he said, he says that I don't know if it was him that quoted this or somebody said that Eddie Van Halen was a complete musical being. I still remember that to this day because I thought, wow, that's heavy.
Yeah.
Imagine a complete musical being. What does that mean? It means, yeah, that he has everything it takes to be a great musician.
Right.
Not only technique, but writing riffs, songs, the tone,
Yeah.
effect.